This time, scientists have stunned people with a truly terrifying find. Archaeologists have unearthed mass graves of people suffering from the plague. What these excavations may lead to, we will soon find out. About this find and more, see in this video. Hi friend, you are on the KirTop channel. People in ancient times recycled old things. Garbage is generated daily, and still a huge part of it is sent to landfills. It seems that people have only recently learned to recycle at least some of the household waste, but this is not so. Past generations took care of things and tried not to throw anything away. And it's not just our grandparents. Scientists have found that even ancient people gave a second life to things. In 2000, scientists found the Catacomb cave, which became a real sensation in the scientific community. The cave was able to preserve a lot of evidence of life here 200 to 400,000 years ago. Traces of a fire, simple utensils, bones. And at first, Italian and Israeli archaeologists worked with the largest finds, but then they turned their attention to small pieces of stone, which were clearly tools. Tools such as chisels and side scrapers were so small that archaeologists had doubts that they were actually used. In order to find out the truth, the tools were examined several times in a variety of ways. For example, spectroscopy was carried out, and as a result, traces of skins, meat, plants were found on the once cutting surfaces. This led to the conclusion that the tools were actually used. But why were they so tiny? It is possible, scientists say, that these tools were made from other, larger tools, and when they became unusable, they made new ones. At first, scientists thought that these were just fragments, but the analyses carried out proved that these were independent tools. The scientists concluded the hominids realized that you cannot throw away the thing, but make a new one out of it and use it for smaller jobs. This allowed them, for example, to process the skin better. Miniature tools developed fine motor skills, and man evolved. Secret cities of the Amazon. A whole network of lost ancient cities has been discovered in the Amazon. They were found using LiDAR technology dubbed lasers in the sky. The technology has been adapted to monitor what is happening under the rainforest canopy. Cities built by the Kasarabe communities between 500 to 1400 BC AD are located in the forest of Llanos de Mojos in Bolivia and have been hidden for centuries under the dense canopy of trees. Many complex and intricate structures have been found in the cities, unlike any previously discovered in the region, including 7-meter-high terraces covering an area equivalent to 30 football fields and 30-meter-high conical pyramids. An international team of researchers from the UK and Germany also uncovered an extensive network of reservoirs, dams, and checkpoints stretching for miles. The discovery challenges the notion of the Amazon as a historically untouched landscape, the researchers say, showing it was home to early urbanism created and managed by indigenous peoples over millennia. There are monumental structures just a couple of kilometers apart, but they are connected by 1,000 kilometers of canals and dams, bringing together reservoirs and lakes. Until the end of the 20th century, there was skepticism that the Amazon region could support anyone other than hunter-gatherer tribes. The Moxos Plains on the southwestern edge of the Amazon are flooded for several months of the year during the rainy season, making them unsuitable for permanent habitation. However, in recent decades, there has been evidence of irrigation, earthworks, large cities, dams, and channels that often lead for many kilometers in a straight line through the savannas. Once the images are taken, the vegetation in the images is removed on a computer, and thus a digital model of the Earth's surface is created, which can also be displayed as a 3D image. During this process, two surprisingly large areas of 1.5 and 3 square kilometers were discovered with a dense 4-level settlement system. It is not yet possible to estimate how many people lived in these cities. However, the layout of the settlement indicates that it was quite densely populated. The architectural layout of the large settlements of the Kasarabe culture indicates that the inhabitants of this region created a new social and public landscape. The scale, monumentality, and labor involved in building civil and ceremonial buildings, water management infrastructure, and the spatial dispersal of settlements all differ from Andean cultures. The complex, interconnected settlements of southern Amazonia far exceed them in scale. Ancient offensive stone. The discovery was made by a volunteer participating in the archaeological excavations. The stone was discovered near the English city of Hexham during the deciphering of ancient Roman inscriptions on the defensive Hadrian's Wall. The inscription Secundinus Cacator was carved on the stone in the 3rd century, which translates into English as Secundinus Shitter. Nearby was a painted penis. Latin epigraphers have noted that the Romans usually used the image of the phallus as a symbol of good luck or fertility. According to them, in this case, the penis increased the strength of the insult. A stone 40 centimeters wide and 15 high was found by former biochemist Dylan Herbert. He made the discovery at the end of his 2nd week of volunteering at the dig. The author of the stone clearly had big problems with Secundin, since he was confident enough to publicly state his thoughts on the stone. I have no doubt that Secundin was as surprised as we are when he saw the inscription while wandering around this place 1,700 years ago. According to experts, each carved letter and penis, which took some time to complete, leave no doubt about the depth of the scribe's feelings. In total, at Hadrian's Wall, a defensive fortification that the Romans built in 122 to 128, they found 13 stones with phalluses carved on them. Time capsule in a cesspool. Archaeologists from the Netherlands, working in the center of the city of Alkmaar, have discovered impressive objects in an ancient cesspool, shedding light on everyday life in the 15th century. Among the finds, a wooden shoe made of birch, which is not grown in the country, stands out. This is a rare clog, which, according to archaeologist Nancy de Jong, has a complex design with a double heel. In total, only 44 such examples are known in the Netherlands and Belgium, and most of them are worse preserved. In addition, scientists extracted from the pit a finely made oak grain measure, a unique artifact because previously only fragments of such containers were found in the region. Until now, they were known mainly from historical evidence. Now, researchers have received material evidence of the existence of such measures in everyday urban life. The cesspool itself dates back to 1450 to 1558. At first, it served as a latrine and then was abandoned during the construction of new houses. Scientists note that residents of that time already practiced a circular economy, reusing or recycling materials and often burning waste for heating. Image of a car on an ancient temple. The Sagara Madu Temple, also known as Pura Dalem Jagaraga, is located in the north of Bali, 11 kilometers east of the city of Singaraja. The temple is located in the village of Jagaraga, known for the tragic event of 1849, when during the Dutch colonization there was a mass ritual suicide of local residents. The temple was originally built in the 12th century during the reign of King Raj Sri Aji Jagaraga, but was later destroyed during the Dutch invasion. Restoration of the temple began in 1865, and its current appearance has largely been preserved since then. The temple complex includes 2 temples, Pura Dalem, dedicated to Shiva, and Pura Prajapat, dedicated to Durga, reflecting their mythological roles as consorts in Hinduism. The walls of the temple are decorated with carvings depicting leaves, flowers, nagas, snake-like creatures, and human figures. Pura Dalem Sagara Madu is associated with rituals of death and destruction, as it is dedicated to Shiva. In the central courtyard, there is a carved gate called Paduraksa, decorated with the head of the mythical creature Bahoma, as well as pavilions for preparing offerings and performing rituals. This temple is unique in that its walls are decorated with scenes from the Western world, such as an airplane falling into the sea, a ship being attacked by a sea monster, and an antique car. Such images appeared because Singaraja was the main seaport of Bali in the 19th and 20th centuries, through which contact with European civilization took place. Odessa catacombs. Huge underground labyrinths are hidden underground in Odessa. The year of the first stay of people in it is considered to be 1813. This is the year written on the wall. During these years, there was a plague epidemic in the city. Perhaps the catacombs served as a shelter for local residents. During World War II, when the city was occupied from 1941 to 1944, these dark and labyrinthine dungeons became a secret hideout for partisan heroes. Imagine a network of underground paths more than 2,500 kilometers long where you can get lost, like in a huge anthill. It was here in the dark and cold that the partisans set up their secret bases. They lived in these dungeons, planned attacks on the enemy, and even printed leaflets calling on people to resist. The catacombs were an ideal place for secretive fighting. The enemy could not easily find or capture them. The partisans used their knowledge of underground labyrinths to shock the enemy, suddenly appearing where they were not expected and disappearing without a trace. It was dark, damp, and very difficult to live in these dungeons, but thanks to the courage and resourcefulness of the partisans, the catacombs became one of the symbols of the unbroken spirit of Odessa. In fact, the history of these labyrinths is so ancient that it has even acquired some legends, one of which says that in the depths of the catacombs lives a short man covered with wool. To survive, he eats bats. Remains of the dancing dragon. Researchers from China discovered the remains of a feathered dinosaur previously unknown to science, which was called the dancing dragon. The creature lived on our planet about 120 million years ago. According to scientists, an interesting find will help shed light on the evolutionary gaps between dinosaurs and birds. A unique fossil of a flying dinosaur was discovered 10 years ago in the Chinese province of Liaoning, but it has only just been made public. During this time, Chinese scientists, together with American colleagues, studied the remains and concluded that the skeleton belongs to a dinosaur previously unknown to science. The new species was named Wulong bohaiensis, translated from Chinese as dancing dragon. The feathered dinosaur lived on the planet about 120 million years ago. Its fossils, including feathers and even soft tissue, are perfectly preserved for their age. It is about the size of an ordinary crow. The creature had a narrow, scaly head and a mouth full of sharp teeth. The dancing dragon fed on small mammals, lizards, birds, and fish. Its limbs, similar to bird wings, were covered with feathers, and two long feathers flaunted at the end of a thin tail. Despite the presence of wings, it did not fly, like other similar types of feathered dinosaurs of this period. Scientists have determined that the fossil belongs to a very young male. At the time of death, he was about 1 year old. Chinese experts hope that the interesting find will help to study in more detail the period in which dinosaurs spread their wings and began to evolve into modern birds. King Arthur was or wasn't? Camelot Castle, Knights of the Round Table, Wizard Merlin, Excalibur Sword. Guess what it's about? The conversation will be about King Arthur, the legendary hero of medieval tales and novels, in which he appears as a just ruler, defender of honor, and the chivalric code. According to legend, King Arthur lived between the 5th and 6th centuries and was the leader of the Britons who inhabited Britain. Tradition says that during the raid of the Anglo-Saxon Germanic tribes on the British Isles, during the Great Migration of Nations, Arthur led the resistance which repulsed the invaders. However, no modern historian can say with certainty whether this person actually existed. Scientists have repeatedly tried to attribute the legendary image of Arthur to one or another historical person, but all attempts have been unconvincing. The earliest references to King Arthur date back to the 9th century and tell of a leader, perhaps not even a king, who fought several battles with the Saxons. The accuracy of this evidence is questionable, and many researchers do not take it seriously. A little later in the 12th century, the personality of King Arthur emerges in a cycle of medieval chivalric romances written in verse in northern France. But again, these novels are only a literary work, not a historical document. There are a number of monuments in Britain that are traditionally associated with the legend of King Arthur. For example, the now ruined castle of Tintagel, where the future king is believed to have been born. But during the archaeological excavations carried out at the site of the ruins of the castle, scientists did not find any evidence confirming the reality of the identity of King Arthur. Most likely, scientists will never know whether King Arthur was a real person or existed only in the imagination of people. Ancient labyrinth. Modern remote sensing methods give archaeology new tools for understanding the past. One striking example is the study of the area around Rujim el-Hiri, an ancient complex of stone circles northeast of the Sea of Galilee. This mysterious monument clearly shows how satellite images allow us to look at the landscape from a completely different angle. Scientists analyzed photos of the area within a radius of 30 kilometers and discovered numerous megalithic structures, massive circles with thick walls and mysterious flower fences near rivers. All of them, according to one hypothesis, could have been elements of irrigation, defense, or cattle pens. In addition, the images show mounds of different shapes and sizes. Perhaps these are burials or signal hills. No less curious are the results of geological measurements. It seems that the territory itself has shifted over the past millennia, which is why the hypothesis about the astronomical purpose of Rujim el-Hiri has come into question. Satellite images show multi-layered construction and archaeological palimpsest, where later structures were built on top of earlier ones. Such studies open the door to the distant past. By comparing satellite data, excavation results, and geophysical analysis, scientists hope to reconstruct a picture of the life of the ancient inhabitants of the Levant and better understand why they erected such monumental stone labyrinths and surrounded them with complex agricultural systems. The Indian Titanic. The merchant ship SS Talawa was sunk on November 20, 1942, by a Japanese submarine in the Indian Ocean, 1,200 kilometers from the Seychelles. There were 958 people on board, including 732 passengers. The liner, which left Mumbai for Durban, was hit by 2 torpedoes and sank at a depth of more than 4,500 meters. Due to a shortage of lifeboats, 280 people died. The rest were rescued by ships of the British fleet. SS Talawa, nicknamed the Indian Titanic, was carrying a valuable cargo, 60 tons of silver intended for minting coins in the Union of South Africa. The value of the silver is estimated at $40 million, and the fate of this cargo remained unknown for almost 75 years. As a result of the deep-sea mission, the Argentum crew successfully raised almost all of the 2391 silver bars stored in the hold. The valuable metal was found in the ship's opium compartment. However, the ownership of the cargo was disputed, and the case went all the way to the UK Supreme Court. In 2023, the court ruled that the silver, worth $43 million, belonged to South Africa. 2 passengers from the ship are still alive today, Elvin Yani and Tej Prakash Mangat. Every year they gather for a reunion to honor the survivors. The Dove's Secret Message. In 2012, in England, an amazing discovery was made in the chimney of one of the houses, which opened a new page in the history of military intelligence and communications during the Second World War. It is about the skeleton of a pigeon, which is believed to have been a signal pigeon that died on a mission. This discovery in itself is already of historical interest, but the real sensation was that a metal capsule containing an undeciphered message was found with the remains of the bird. This message, written on thin paper, consists of 27 lines of coded characters that have not yet been deciphered. Researchers speculate that it could have been a secret message sent from the front to Allied headquarters during critical operations. Pigeon mail was an important means of communication during the war due to its ability to deliver messages in conditions where other means of communication were unavailable or too dangerous. The discovery has challenged cryptographers and historians around the world to decipher the message, which could contain valuable information about military operations, intelligence, or even the location of a military unit. This discovery also highlights the importance and uniqueness of pigeon mail as a means of transmitting important messages, which was especially important during times of global conflicts. Interestingly, the search for the key to this cipher continues to this day. Where is Cleopatra's tomb located? Cleopatra, or Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last queen of Hellenistic Egypt. First of all, she is known for the dramatic love story for the Roman commander Mark Antony. When Egypt submitted to Rome, the queen committed suicide so as not to become a prisoner of the Roman Emperor Octavian Augustus. Antony also committed suicide, only a little earlier than Cleopatra. Ancient historians claim that the servants buried the lovers together immediately after their death in 30 BC in a tomb prepared for burial. The ancient Greek historian Plutarch wrote that the tomb of Cleopatra and Antony was located next to the temple of the Egyptian goddess Isis, and was a majestic and beautiful monument, the interior decoration of which amazed the imagination. There was a huge amount of gold, silver, emeralds, pearls, a lot of ebony products, and ivory. Where is the tomb of the Egyptian queen and the Roman commander is still a mystery. In 2010, the former Secretary General of the Supreme Council of Antiquities of Egypt, Zahi Hawass, conducted excavations in the village of Taposiris Magna, where high-ranking officials were buried in the time of Cleopatra. Although archaeologists then made many interesting discoveries, they failed to find the tomb of Cleopatra and Antony. The researchers note that even if the tomb of the queen has survived to this day, it could have suffered greatly at the hands of the robbers, in which case it would be very difficult to recognize it. 700-year-old ship. Many years ago, sailing ships were the main means of transportation by which people traveled the world, and most importantly, they traded goods from one end to the other. Most of the ships that sailed the waters of the earth ended up on the bottom of the oceans as a result of an attack by enemy forces or natural disasters. Only a few well-preserved ships are kept in naval museums, while most rest on the ocean floor. An interesting archaeological find occurred during construction work in Tallinn, Estonia. While the workers were digging the ground for the foundation of a new building, they discovered a 25-meter-long vessel believed to be a 13th-century Hanseatic ship. The ship was found at a depth of 1.5 meters underground near the port of Tallinn, near the former mouth of the Herjapia River, a waterway that no longer exists. The ship's hull was found to be almost intact and very well preserved in the ground, compared to other similar ships discovered in the past. Archaeologist Michael Tammet analyzed the wood for dendrochronology, and the results showed that the wreck dates back to 1298. According to historical data, despite the unusual location where the wreck was discovered, in the 18th century this place was still underwater, and only at the beginning of the 20th century was it converted for infrastructure development. The place itself is quite close to the port of Tallinn. In 2008, another similar wreck was discovered just 50 meters from this place. The ship was assigned to the Hanseatic community, a powerful trading network that stretched from England to Russia. In the 13th century, this trading network was perhaps one of the largest economic powers in the world, trading in goods and luxury goods. The ships that made up this network were built to last hundreds of years and withstand countless storms. Immortality of Greenland sharks. There has been an unexpected twist in the case of Greenland sharks, famous for their longevity, which may provide a clue to the mystery of longevity not only of these fish, but also of people. These sharks, which live in the cold waters of the Atlantic and Arctic seas, can live up to 500 years. One of the oldest sharks, which was born around 1624, is older than Peter the Great. Scientists from the University of Copenhagen determined its age using carbon dating. Despite the fact that Greenland sharks are rare due to their habit of living at depths of several hundred meters, scientists are actively studying them to understand the secret of their longevity. Previous studies have shown that a slow metabolism plays a key role. The pace of life theory suggests that life expectancy is directly dependent on the speed of metabolic processes in the body. However, recent data indicate the importance of habitat. Greenland sharks live in cold waters where the temperature can drop to minus 1.8 degrees Celsius. Living in such conditions slows down all chemical and biological reactions in their bodies, which may explain their immortality. In addition, they live in depths where there are practically no natural enemies except humans. Professor Holly Shields from the University of Manchester believes that the isolated environment also contributes to their longevity. The metabolism of these sharks remains stable throughout their lives, which is not typical for most animals. Scientists did not find significant changes in the metabolic activity of their muscle tissue with age. In the future, the study of shark tissue at the Arctic University of Norway should help to understand how climate change and pollution affect marine life in the long term.
The oldest map of the world has been deciphered. The British Museum has revealed the secret of one of the oldest maps of the world, a clay tablet from Babylon, created about 3,000 years ago. The so-called Imago Mundi, found in the city of Abu Haba, Sipar, in Iraq, has been kept in the museum's collection since 1882. The tablet depicts a simplified whole world as imagined by the inhabitants of Mesopotamia. The center is occupied by a rectangle of the Euphrates River. Around it are circles and rectangles denoting cities, including Babylon. Everything is surrounded by a bitter river, the salty waters of the Persian Gulf, and the Mediterranean Sea. According to cuneiform specialist Irving Finkel, this is a schematic reflection of the space where people lived and died, and beyond it, according to the tablet, there were 8 remote regions. The Akkadian text on the top and back of the map tells the story of the creation of the world and recounts one version of the story of the Great Flood. According to it, around 1800 BC, God commanded King Utnapishtim to build an ark, the remains of which were supposedly left behind a bitter river on a mountainside. A missing fragment of the tablet discovered in 1995 helped scientists decipher the story more accurately. In addition, the Babylonian god Marduk is mentioned, as well as fantastic creatures such as the Scorpion Man and the lion-headed bird Anzu, confirming the rich mythological world of the Babylonians.
Collection of paintings. In 2012, a discovery in Munich shocked the global creative community. A billion-dollar collection of paintings confiscated by the Nazis was found in a modest-sized apartment. Among the works were works by such masters as Marc Chagall, Pablo Picasso, and Henri Matisse. This collection represents lost treasures of European art, many of which were thought lost for decades. The paintings fell into the hands of the Nazis as a result of a massive campaign to confiscate works of art that the regime considered degenerate or belonging to Jewish families. Many of these works were confiscated from their owners in the pre-war and war years, and after the war they were considered lost or destroyed. The discovery of this collection was made possible thanks to the investigative actions of the German authorities who were investigating a case of tax fraud. The investigation led to a search of the apartment where these priceless works of art were discovered. The collection included both well-known masterpieces and lesser-known works that are nevertheless of great artistic and historical value. The find caused an international outcry because it raised questions about ownership, restitution, and moral responsibility. For many descendants of Jewish families stripped of their treasures by the Nazis, the discovery offered hope for the return of lost works of art that had become a symbol of their history and heritage. Cold Dragon. While examining the fossilized remains of a creature found in the Canadian province of Alberta, London-based paleontologists have discovered a previously unknown creature dubbed Cryodracon boreas. Cold dragon. With a wingspan of up to 10 meters and a weight of 250 kilograms, the species has proven to be one of the largest flying animals in history. It belongs to the Ajdarchidae family, a pterosaur species often confused with pterodactyls, and lived during the Cretaceous period about 77 million years ago. The cold dragon had a wingspan of up to 10 meters and weighed about 250 kilograms, making it one of the largest flying reptiles in history. Dinosaur remains, parts of wings, legs, ribs, neck vertebrae, were discovered 30 years ago in Canada, but paleontologists have assumed all this time that they belong to the already known species of pterosaur, Quetzalcoatlus northropii, discovered in Texas. Most of the skeleton belongs to a young reptile with a wingspan of about 5 meters, but one large neck bone belonging to an older individual suggests that the adult animal had a wingspan of up to 10 meters. Cold dragons were carnivorous and preyed on small animals, lizards, mammals, and baby dinosaurs. Unlike most groups of pterosaurs, Ajdarchids are generally considered animals that have been adapted to inland habitats despite their ability to cross oceans. Remains of Cryodracon boreas include parts of wings, legs, ribs, neck vertebrae of 2 different individuals. Despite the large size of the body and the distribution of these reptiles in North and South America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, scientists were able to find only fragmentary remains of a few species of Ajdarchids. However, the remains of a new species of pterosaur are perfectly preserved and therefore are of value to paleontologists. Plague Cemetery. On Pushkinskaya Street in Rostov, Russia, archaeologists have unearthed the largest necropolis. Rostov residents were buried on it during the plague pandemic from 1770 to 1772. Historians are sure this is an archaeological sensation. Archaeologists have already excavated 25 graves and discovered about 100 skeletons. Most of the dead were buried with whole families, which speaks of the plague epidemic raging in this region. The first human bones in this area were found by workers at the end of April. Having learned about these finds, a group of archaeologists began excavations and came to stunning results. The found ancient cemetery is on the preserved maps. Most likely, these are the so-called mortgaged dead, that is, those who died an unnatural death. They were buried away from the fortress. At that time, there were about 10 cemeteries on the territory of Rostov. Despite the danger of contracting the plague, the dead were not escorted on their last journey anyhow. The bodies are carefully and evenly laid. In many graves, their children were placed at the feet of women. Ancient silver coins were also found in the tombs. Thus, the dead hoped to find a new and happy life in another world. The terrible plague that mowed down people in the 18th century does not pose a danger to humans today. After all, 250 years have passed. In any case, I would not recommend historians to dig up the mass graves of people who had the plague. But I strongly recommend that you subscribe to our channel and always be aware of new archaeological finds. Leave your kind comments below the video. Thanks for your views. Bye, everyone.